I'm happiest in the saddle.
A fellow sportsman.
I am an FBI agent!
Hey, stop! What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole!
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Come with me if you want to live.
Hello, and welcome to Recent Ramble. This is where George and I take a break from our monthly episodes where we cover the films of our youth to cover some films that have come out recently. Isn't that right, George?
Yes, that's right, brother. These films, whilst they are new and fresh releases, we think they will be right up our listeners' avenues.
I can't believe I actually forgot to introduce ourselves, and people need to match the voice for the voice. So I'm Charlie McGee.
I'm George McGee.
And this is Retro Ramble doing it recently. So what are we covering this time, George?
We threatened it in one of our previous episodes, and it's a man that's no stranger to Retro Ramble. We are covering the latest JCVD outing, which is Netflix's own The Last Mercenary.
We really couldn't help ourselves, could we?
It was inevitable. I mean,
Neither could they, to be honest. I mean, how is this film sold? It's like, do you like JCVD?
You know, Adam Sandler can do like 10 Netflix films. Why can't JCVD do just one? So yeah, it's about bloody time.
Long time coming.
So yes, obviously, yeah, we covered Time Cop earlier in the year with the boys from Spotlight. And I think we talked about his, you know, it was up and coming. So yes, there's The Last Mercenary, but there's more.
It's a double bill. It's a double bill, motherfucker.
It's a double bill, as you will probably see from the title in your podcast app. We are also
that we haven't written yet, because that happens in the future.
That happens in the future, which is quite well put, because we are doing time loop action thriller meets Groundhog Day. Boss Level, starring Frank Grillo.
Grillo and Mel Gibson and Naomi Watts.
Yes, but they're not.
Mainly Frank Grillo.
Mainly Frank Grillo. So yes, we'll be covering those two. And in a bit of a change from traditional Retro Ramble episodes, this will be a shorter affair. We will try and avoid, we'll go light on the spoilers. You know, usually it's a deep dive on the films that we cover. Obviously, these are new films. So we're going to, give them a sort of a light overview. And
why do I feel like that's a veiled instruction for me? I am notorious. I'm like, let's just do it like we normally do in Retro Ramble. Said Charlie, some people haven't seen these films.
Yeah, so these are, just I say, are Charlie and I sort of a quick review on each of these films.
Well, yeah, these films are out. They touch they touch the base that we cover. It would be rude not to cover these. So we'll try and do it as lightly and non-spoilerific as possible. So yeah, this time we're going to start with The Last Mercenary.
Play the trailer.
Engage trailer.
We received a fax. Who sends a fax with a code that's 25 years old?
A guy who's been gone for 25 years.
A legend. The world's most celebrated mercenary. A top pilot. A weapons expert. Undetectable. Like his code name. The Mist.
Here's your son's file, as you requested. Watch out. You've always spent your time saving others.
Where are we going?
Move it. It's great to meet you.
You need to do what I say if you want to leave.
Do you think that the buyer's pretending to be Archie?
Wait.
First we need that imposter. My name needs to be clear.
They'll kill you, you hear me?
Look, this is simple. You weren't my dad.
There's a rule within the service. Don't get attached. Because we need to protect the safety of friends. We need a team together.
Down! Could you not break down my neck? Come on! Just like the Terminator.
My man. Want to play? Well, let's play. To the music.
So George, it's Recent Ramble. Anybody who's listened to our shows, you know, the reason we do this podcast is that George and I grew up watching a lot of 80s and 90s films. They are still very relevant, getting remade, getting turned into series. But this is quite different. This is where these are the films that are being made by the actors. So Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's popped up in the podcast a few times, but it's a different kind of...
Not personally, his films have.
Yes. I mean, he still hasn't answered back any of our calls or our
letters.
Letters.
Sent letters.
It's only a matter of time. So, yeah, do you want to go first? I mean, who has given us this film? Because when you look at all the other actors who've had their second wind, shall we say, the John Wicks, the Matthew McConaughey's, the Liam Neesons, why not JCVD, and why has it taken so long? That's kind of the thing I'm asking. But do you know? I don't know much about this director.
I've never heard of him. So it's David Chahon, I think is how you pronounce it. I've probably butchered it, or David Chahon in English. But looking at his IMDb, he's done a couple of action sort of comedy type vehicles before. So he did like a buddy cop thing with Omar Sy, and he's done something with Daniel Arthur, I think. So yeah, he's done a few films, but he's been directing for about 10 years or so. So he hasn't got too many features to his name, and they didn't seem to be overly action pictures. So he's directed it, and he's wrote it, written by him and another guy called Ismail Sai Savan, who actually also plays one of the mercenaries on JCVD's Tail.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of... I had the pleasure of watching this in France with one of my French mates. A lot of us call him JCVD. There is a slight resemblance. But he's a fan, the most important aspect of that. And also being French, he has grown up watching French cinema. And I think that's something that will come up. It's a French cast. It's a French film. This is very much Netflix doing their thing for the regions, like where we're not going to, try to Americanize everything. Let's throw some money at a country and see what they can make. So I don't know what that was like for you, George, but for me it was weird to watch a film with JCVD and where the whole thing is in French, because I think that's only happened one or two times before. But I don't think anything was lacking.
I mean, obviously I've watched, and we talked about this in our Time Cop episode. Obviously, there's the film JCVD, which is all in French, which is because it's set in Belgium. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they're speaking French, not Flemish.
There's three languages spoken in Belgium. Don't waste your time. There's French, there's Flemish, there's Flanders. Yeah, no, there's. Don't worry about it. Just speak French, and they'll respond in English.
Yeah, I think there must be the option on Netflix to watch it dubbed, but I just can't stand dubbing. I just find it... I know people talk about reading subtitles can be distracting, but I find dubbing too distracting.
I won't even let my kids watch Paw Patrol dubbed.
Watch it in authentic French.
Yeah. No, I bring it up because this is kind of... there's certain types of films. There's the American Hollywood type film. If you want to think of like in terms of British films, like What We Do Well, we did a bunch of good... We do gangster films. Guy Ritchie made a bunch of films that were very good on the global scale, but we do some very good romantic comedies. We've got a certain style of British film, and a lot of Bond films, a lot of big films, Star Wars and Bond, and they've been made in the UK with British teams. But France has its own type of cinema, and I think this falls very neatly into this. And I think it's the only criticism. It's more of a letdown, is that I was expecting the Hollywood glitzy treatment for JCVD, and it's actually a very very typical French comedy, so that's what's weird.
That's what I wanted to double check with you, because obviously, as some of our listeners will know, you live in France, you live in Paris, you are now a French national.
I'm getting French by the minute. Yeah, I've got like a card de séjour. I'm here for 10 years. In your face, Brexit. No, I ain't going nowhere. And
but you've been immersed in French culture for some time. You have a French wife, and I'm assuming
She says we've got French kids. I beg to differ.
And I'm assuming you've been forced to watch some terrible French comedies in the past. So you've got some good reference for this, whereas I I have, in terms of French comedies that I've seen, I've probably seen about, I can probably count them on one hand. I mean, there's the original Birdcage, Cage aux Folles, some Gerard Depardieu movies, maybe.
No, there's some great and even recent comedies. Luckily, I can still only count the amount I've had to watch on one hand. No, I mean, Bienvenue le Ch'ti is amazing. It's about a guy from where my wife's from in the north of France, having to move. It's a guy from the south who's living in Côte d'Azur, having to move up to Lille.
Right.
And there's some great jokes in there about the difference between the north-south divide, done very well. And they did one years earlier, which is kind of Naked Gun in the Alps. But it's very much a culture thing. But they've given us, the Dinner for Schmucks. This a lot of French films is this this thing where it's contained, it's in a certain place with a certain number of characters with a certain premise. And I think that's the only thing I can level at The Last Mercenary, is maybe it was the way it was marketed. We talk about, we like to start these shows with George and I talking about first memories. Well, we all saw the trailer, but then I was traveling through France on a train and they'd overtaken the whole of a French big train station, Montparnasse, all promoting, how Netflix likes to take over train stations, all of it promoting JCVD's latest flick, pictures everywhere. And they've done some Photoshop work on him, which is clearly him from Kickboxer, but they put a wig on him and they make him look older type thing. So they really promoted the shit out of it. It's like, this is going to be another JCVD action flick. And it's not. It's more of it's a French comedy which has him in, doing all of his stuff, but it's not a blockbuster. And I think maybe we expected too much. It's a Netflix French film. I'm glad we're on the same page. I went into it and they, probably down to marketing, they kind of marketed it as JCVD, he's back. It's it's an action comedy, but you saw JCVD doing what he does best, kicking ass, doing some sexy dancing, and it does have that. But I think I was expecting a bit more action, a little bit more martial arts action. And whilst I didn't have an issue with the comedy, I didn't find it particularly funny, but I didn't have an issue. I quite liked I thought the ensemble, because it is an ensemble piece, it's JCVD working with a team, and I didn't find them too irritating. I thought it was quite a nice diverse cast. They're all household names here in France. I should just
well that's it. I think there's a lot that washed over me. There's one of his team that's an elder lady. I think she's called Miu Miu in real life.
Yeah, no, she's one of the most famous.
She's
French
Helen Mirren of France, apparently.
Yeah, and there is everyone in it. Even the guy, the guy who's in the office doing nothing with a bald head.
Yes,
he's like a massive star in France as well. So I don't even know his name, and that's no lack of respect. It's just you watch this film. But for me, and I've lived here for over 10 years now, I'm starting to get the jokes. And no, it's more of a typical. There's some great French comedy. There's another series on Netflix called Family Business, which is all about this French family butchers who to keep the business going, they start doing weed because they think it's going to be legalized. And in the end it's not. It's hilarious, and we're on the second, and it's brilliant, and I highly recommend you to watch that with subtitles. It'll still be funny. There's also a French comedian who's just got her new show, she's got her Netflix break, and I've watched it with subtitles, and I don't get all of the French, and it's still hilarious. Even the subtitles, considering I work with subtitles in my job, are amazing. So give it a bit of time, but it's definitely a barrier in this film. For me, I get the humor and it is funny and it does pass the test, but this podcast, if you listen to any of our episodes, we have a lot of love for the man. And I think that kind of clouded my, there's a bit of rose-tinted JCVD going on. But he's great. He's doing the splits on the ceiling. It was all in the trailer. I have to say, it was one of the cases of probably the highlights of the film were in the trailer. And unlike probably the second film that we're going to talk about later in this podcast, I felt like the fight choreography could have been done. He could have done better. And I don't think it's about his age. I think he could have done better. It was a bit, I'm talking about the camera work.
Well, that's what I was trying to work out as well. I've got that in my notes, that whilst there's some good action set pieces, there's a great car chase, there's a couple of good fights, there's a locker room fight, and the final face off in an 80s themed games room is fun. I did find some of the choreography, it just disappointing. And I'm wondering, is that a mixture of, JCVD is 60, he's not as, he's still in great shape, but is that him, or is it down to David Charon, his inexperience as a action director?
I would no offense to him, I'm gonna say I think it's the latter, because I follow JCVD on Instagram. I mean, who doesn't? Him with his little dogs, and then but he's still doing the splits. He's still doing roundhouses. I've seen him in action. He's still got it, so he can still do it quick enough that it wouldn't have been. It's not like Samuel L. Jackson and Captain Marvel. It's not. No. No. He's still definitely got it. So for me, I think it's cameras. I think
it's probably down to, and it's that typical Hollywood-esque editing of let's keep the
snapshots.
It's quickly edited, and you're not getting to appreciate the choreography, the moves, and bring the camera back a little bit. It is great to see him. He's still kicking ass, and there is, the action. I say there is some good action in it, but personally, I don't think there's enough action. Whilst it's great to see JCVD in a more prominent comedy film rather than having moments of brevity in a very serious film. I just didn't feel. I felt that it was lacking a bit of the action stakes. There is some really nice JCVD and 80s homages. It very much plays on the nostalgia, the 80s nostalgia. You've got Scarface, you've got 80s inspired neon credits, opening credits, and there's some nice nods to previous JCVD stuff as well.
So I think I didn't realize until I think it was about 10 minutes before I was about to watch the film that it was all going to be in French. I don't really think about it. I mean, you always knew this was going to be a French film.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think when I first heard about this film, I just saw images like a child's mind.
I recognized the logo.
JCVD's back, and I just had all of these, like, I think what you and I were talking about one of our previous episodes before we knew anything about this was like, he's got a gig, he's got a Netflix gig, he's making a film, it's gonna be like John Wick, it's gonna be nuts. But I can't believe I'm saying this, but like, I kind of wish this had the Hollywood treatment, that somebody had come up with a thing like, no, we're gonna make it successful, and it's gonna be a fucking trilogy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think this fits the hole that it was supposed to go into, and it's like, it's very much a French comedy, and I enjoyed watching it. And the French guy I watched it with, he's watched plenty. Jefferson's watched plenty JCVD in his time. So it's a good movie. It's a French comedy, but I think we both were hoping it was more than that. So it definitely ticks the boxes for what it is. I think it was just very well marketed.
Sneakily marketed.
Is there anything else you want to? I mean, he's going to keep making stuff. Thank God, he's done the Expendables, which
I mean, hopefully he's he's had. I think we still haven't. This isn't a renaissance for the muscles from Brussels that we were hoping. And he's had a few second chances. With the Amazon show, Jean-Claude Van Johnson, and as you said, he's very prominent on Insta and stuff like that. But I'm still holding out that somebody, and maybe Netflix will say, hey, I think it has done, it's been in the top 10s and around the Netflix worldwide. I think purely from people saying, I don't know how many people have watched the film all the way through, but hopefully it might pave the way for Netflix to say, that's more successful, let's do some more JCVD stuff, and it might be more actiony stuff.
I'd like to see him in a show. I'd like to see somebody do what Tarantino did with Travolta, and make him a bad guy. Make him a henchman.
I want it exactly. Well, he technically does play a henchman in Kung Fu Panda 2 as an evil crocodile.
I'm still way behind you there, buddy.
But
you know what I'm talking about.
I want that exactly to happen. I was even saying on the Empire group on Facebook today that someone's saying, who'd be a great director and actor pairing that hasn't happened, and I think I would love to see what Tarantino could do with JCVD, and I've probably said that on the podcast before.
I think Tarantino would have a lot of fun. He'd do some detective noir film, but the guy kicks ass, Sonny Chiba style. By the way, rest in peace. Yeah, heard
yes,
that this
indeed.
week. Very, very sad news. But no, in terms of JCVD, I just think he deserves to he deserves to be more in the mainstream than he is. He's got the moves. He's got the comedy. You know, I don't think he wants to be an evil bad guy, but he could be sly. I think somebody needs to push his range. But no, I'm never going to get tired of watching him. And there's a few splits in that film. I'm not
some sexy dancing. Some sexy dancing.
There is obviously sexy dancing. Yeah, they know how to press our buttons, don't they? So yeah, if you like JCVD, watch this film. If you don't like foreign films, still watch this film. It actually
put on Bloodsport.
Put on Bloodsport, yeah. What am I trying to say? Or listen, yeah, just watch an older film if that's what you want. Okay. Anything else you want to cover on the last Mercenary? Definitely not the last JCVD, but probably the last Mercenary film.
C'est fini.
So it's time for another recent ramble with me, Charlie McGee, and my brother George McGee. And the other film of recent release that we will be covering is
Boss Level.
Right. And that's because it's going to be like computer game orientated, and it's going to be about getting to the boss level, right? Right. In a way.
Hey, Jake. I used to complain that every day felt the same, and now every day is the same. I have died 144 times when every day ends like this. But it doesn't matter. Not when you've lost everything you've loved. Venter, man who's had me killed 150 times.
Power to rewrite history is mine.
Heads up. I know everything that's gonna happen. One thing that never changes.
What's up, pretty boy?
Bunch of assholes are killing me for reasons that remain a mystery.
I am Guan Yin, and Guan Yin has done this.
1, 2, 3.
It's for you.
Roy, can you hear me?
I can't explain it right now, but I'm gonna need your help.
Gemma? The only woman I've ever loved and who can stop this is still alive. I have to get killed over and over again. Until I save her. I need to learn how to fight with a sword.
I would only have a day.
I think we can get a lot done in a day.
Someone's been the busiest little beaver.
I'm stuck in the death loop because of you.
Exactly.
Bring them all on. Every last one of them. I can do this all day.
So yeah, as I summed it up at the start of the episode, and I think I summed it up to you in a text message in terms of you need to check out this film, it's John Wick meets Groundhog Day. And it's just dropped on Prime recently, so a lot of people, it's getting a lot of attention. But interestingly, it was actually made back in 2018. And was due to be released in end of 2019, and then it got shelved because of obviously the pandemic. But then the original distributing company dropped it, and it got picked up by Hulu. So it's directed by Joe Carnahan. Joe Carnahan's had a bit of an interesting career. So he broke onto the scene with the brilliant film Narc, with Ray Liotta and Jason Patrick. I think that was in the early noughties.
That takes me back, bro. We were students, weren't we?
Yeah, I remember watching it at uni, yeah. And then he also did the A-Team movie, which had good parts in it, but
it was a good film, just very, very loosely connected to the original A-Team.
Well, I watched it again recently, only a few weeks ago, and it's enjoyable. It's got a good cast. It's just not as good as it could be. And
it didn't really need to be an A-Team movie, was kind of how I walked away from it. I was like, it's an okay film. It didn't actually need to be an A-Team.
Or it was one of those things that was crying out for in a sequel. It was too much of an origin story, whereas they should have just had them on the run, from the get-go, as is in the show. So he did A-Team, he did Smoking Aces, which has a lot of similarities with this, which is about, lots of crazy hitmen chasing after one target, so he has that zany action vibe. What else has he done? Apparently he's been...
Some good cinematography.
He likes his very stylistic very stylized action, but he's a bit hit and miss in terms of director. So, but he does action quite well. So, I think this is quite a good partnership because obviously it's director Joe Carnahan and Frank Grillo, who most people will be most familiar. He is from, well, he crops up in the Marvel movies. So he crops up in Captain America, Winter Soldier as one of the S.H.I.E.L.D. bad guys that eventually will become Crossbones. So I can't remember. Rock Brumlow, I think it is. Right. Brumlow.
That sounds like Crossbones' kind of normal name.
Stryker is X-Men, is evil military dude from X-Men.
And that's not Marvel at all. Oh, sorry, I'm going cross-eyed and nobody cares. Right, yeah. So anyway, he's in Marvel, fight coordinator.
And yes, his background, I think, is very much, he was a stunt coordinator. That's become an actor. That's become a bit more in front of the camera. And as you can see in this film, he must work out.
Yeah, he's a really good fight coordinator.
He possibly supplements.
No, we're not putting the finger. I just think he eats a lot of chicken and nothing else.
He sets his alarm 4 a.m, eats chicken, and goes back to sleep again.
He is on the wall. He's on the huge action Wolverine diet for sure.
So yeah, this is, just to sum it up, because we've been waffling on for a while, it's an action movie spin on the time loop mini genre. Are we saying time loop's a genre?
Well, we can't just call it's a Groundhog meets blah blah blah, but yeah, it's a time loop film. But that's a question we'll probably have to answer later, but did anybody do it before Groundhog Day?
I'm sure that has been. But
so that's why we're calling it a time loop thing and not a Groundhog Day thing. So
and there's been plenty of time loop stuff in recent times. There's the brilliant Palm Springs that you and I will probably talk about later on. I think there's some horror stuff as well. There's like Happy Death Day, which I haven't seen, which is a Netflix. And I think there's a few shows that, because of the whole pandemic, where we're
living Groundhog Day.
Yeah, living Groundhog Day. I think it has become quite a popular theme in popular culture.
Almost a go-to.
So yeah, this is part time loop thing, part video game homage. And I thought it was quite nice to see Frank Grillo in a leading role, because I've only seen him in bit parts. I think he has had some leading parts in some more sort of straight to streaming stuff or direct to not straight to video, but he was in the Purge sequel, Purge Anarchy, and he was in Skyline sequel. So he's almost like a budget version of The Rock. So he's drafted in to make these cheap sequels a bit more action heavy.
Sequels to B movies.
Sequels to B movies, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
No, but he does a great job, and he's got presence. He's got he's got amazing hair in every single shot of the film. So much so.
Big hair.
No, but so much so you're like, how far away is makeup from this action pic? There's shit flying everywhere. It's been thrown out of a window, and it's like so coiffed, so boofed. The thing about this film is that it really does, it sets itself up rather confidently, expecting to maybe get picked up and be made into something else. Let's just say the ending's ambiguous without spoiling anything for everybody, but it's got everything you want to see, and it's something that hasn't been done. So imagine Groundhog Day, but with loads of action, like as George said, the John Wick style, and it does deliver on those two fronts. As for the plotty narrative sticky stuff that sticks it all together, not so much. But don't worry about that. That's not what you came here for.
I think it's a lot of fun. I watched it on a Friday night. I had a few drinks. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and I think Joe Carnahan is quite good at that. It is almost comic booky, it's quite sort of pulpy action. It's not like, it doesn't take itself too seriously. There is some good, one-liners and quips, and Frank Grillo's sort of delivery, his narration is quite dry. And it's also got, very much like Smoking Aces. It's got a very colourful, diverse cast of assassins, weird and wonderful assassins. There's these German twins. There's a dwarf with bombs. There's a Chinese girl with a sword. So there's lots of. It's very comic booky in its sort of stylized villains. Oh, and apparently Mel Gibson's in this film as well.
Yeah, I was wondering when we're going to get to this because,
So Mel Gibson is the boss. He's the boss level.
So is he, though? No, I mean, I think we don't need to, for anybody who's not listened to our podcast before, ultimate respect, we've covered Lethal Weapon was a Christmas episode. We have so much love for Mel Gibson, but he's in this film and you watch this film for its entirety and you just walk away from it thinking, I think he has one really good monologue and another bit where he's being kind of evil and saying stuff and he's always in the background, but so underused. So if it just, I mean, we're not going to spoil it, but it's like, could have done so much more. Could have done.
Well, yeah, I was thinking this as well.
Is he going to be in the sequel?
Because he's one of the best things in the very disappointing Expendables 3. He's the big bad guy in Expendables 3, and he's properly jacked up in it. He has a great fight with Stallone at the end. I think he's like Colonel Stonebanks. They've got the names in Expendables are brilliant.
Nonsense. What are we going to call this villain?
Jean Villain. So yeah, he's one of the best things in Expendables 3 because Expendables 3 is probably the worst of the Expendables films.
I still can't believe you watched it. I gave up on that film.
I'm a completist. What can I say?
When they were going through the air on skylines at the start, and I was just like, no, I'm out.
I know it's got some. Expendables 3 has three good things. It has Wesley. It brings in Wesley back from tax evasion.
Okay, I'm in.
It's got Antonio Banderas being all crazy, and you've got Mel Gibson really hamming it up, really as a bad guy, gleeful bad guy, and
that's what's lacking in this, isn't it?
Sorely lacking in this film. As you say, he has very much a Raul Silva from Skyfall, monologue about the cruelty of nature and how evil things are, and that's pretty cool. But then he's just completely wasted, and when there's a moment, the boss level where he fights the boss, I'm sort of jumping into spoilers, but it's just a really quick and blink and you miss it fight, essentially.
Well, I think the thing is about the whole boss level is the boss is always supposed to be
the hardest
ahead of you.
Yeah.
Harder than you, harder to beat. That's why it's called boss level. And in this film, the whole premise of this film is the fact it's all about the protagonist has the opportunity to go back and you can look, let's talk about this in video game terms. The protagonist gets to reset and restart the game every time until he gets to the boss level. But I think what's lacking on the film scale of things is the boss doesn't know how many times he's played it, if you know what I mean. So I think that's what's lacking. I think the only reason I bring that is I think it detracts something from Mel Gibson as being the boss, is that he doesn't know all the stuff that you've watched in the film. But
and it's also a fact that it's all about getting to the boss. That's the journey. But when he actually gets to the boss, it's a bit of an anticlimax. It's sort of like it's the film's all about all the different ways he has to get there.
But it really does deliver in the third act in terms of action, because I think that's where you can't. I compare this film in terms of its tone to Rambo, but Rambo makes you wait and really delivers in the third act. And this film does. It's not really sure of its tone, but it really delivers. There's a bit where it's third act stuff. Shit's going to get real. He's leveled up himself, and it is very John Wick. It's beautifully choreographed, and you can see Frank Grillo is in his element because he's narrating and he's kicking ass and taking names. And I think he will get more work from this. And yeah, as I say, it's definitely not a bad film. I just think, I don't know, there's a lot of questions, and they're not normally the type of questions you ask about this film. When you have a film with time loops, it's normally like, that's an interesting way to do it. Whereas with this film, it's like, why did they decide to do it this way? Is kind of the question.
I think obviously there's only so much you can do in one film, and it definitely delivers on the action stakes. I think it really doesn't really add anything new to the time loop genre. I think the time loop genre has been done better from a sci-fi point of view in what's it called? The Code, Source Code, and
whenever he says code.
And most recently, a film that I really enjoyed and found surprising was Palm Springs with Andy Serkis. Whilst that's not an action film, it's a brilliant deconstruction of, and it is more of a romantic comedy like Groundhog Day. It has so much more to say about what could possibly happen if you ever found yourself in that situation, all the different things you go to, all the different lengths of despair, and
it's a much more psychological look at it. It's like you'd be ready to die. Nothing would mean anything. You would do everything once and you'd do it 100 times, and you would then do crazy shit that you would never do just because it was different. So that the great thing is it Palm Springs? I keep forgetting the name.
Yeah, Palm Springs. Yeah.
So it keeps on exploring what would you do if you could do the same day.
Yeah.
And in Palm Springs' case, a wedding. If you could do, you could do anything you ever wanted. And I think what it does better in that film is it's slicker in how it deals with the melancholy of being in that situation, whereas in Boss Level, he's like, sometimes he either can't be bothered or he's kick-ass. It seems there's very much hot and cold, whereas I think the Andy Samberg film is very much delves into it would just completely fuck with your head. But what they both do, I mean, maybe Groundhog Day didn't hammer it into us enough, is the fact that it's millennia, that it's hundreds of years. I always got the feeling when I was watching Groundhog Day that he was there, I don't know, 100 days, maybe a year. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was never really hammered into you. But in both these films we're talking about, so the Palm Springs, I mean, this guy's done it 200 times, but in Palm Springs, like you almost get the feeling like it's been years. Yeah. He has literally been there for infinity. That's not really literal. But anyway, you get the meaning that it's much longer. He's done everything.
Also, there's code. As well as Mel Gibson being wasted, Naomi Watts is also, she's a very good actress. She hasn't really, I can't remember the last good thing she was in, but she pops up. She's in a very thankless female. Women don't.
We're going to make you a scientist. We're totally woke, so we're going to make a woman a scientist. And then what was the major arc of her? It's like, you work too much. Your kid misses you. Women shouldn't work. It is. She doesn't even explain how it works. There's no bingly-bongly science fiction stuff going on. There's just like a generator.
I'll put the thing in the machine.
All she technically does is like, she kind of whimpers, she cries. She's meant to be this amazing scientist. And she whimpers and she cries. She cuts his hair and she sticks something in a machine. And then she's told, your kid is buying vintage video games because you're not there. You should stop working so hard. This is a man's job. No, I mean, I was maybe reading a little bit into it, but I mean, no really strong female characters. But I think she could be we've seen her do much better work. And I'm not just talking about Mulholland Drive. She should be, have lines and stuff, joined up sentences.
So I think it's a solid 3-star movie. It's got I think it'll definitely tick the boxes for action fans. Definitely more
post-pub. This is definitely a post-pub film. This is one of those, you've had a couple of jars, you've come home, there's nothing on telly, stick on Prime, and have fun. It is.
Yeah, I think it definitely fills that sort of void whilst we're waiting for the amazingly growing cast of John Wick 4. We're waiting for John Wick 4 to come out. I think it will satisfy action fans. I just feel like, in terms of the whole time loop premise, I think it kind of squandered some of the potential it had.
Yeah, and just to touch on that for a second, John Wick 4 is becoming like the Portal scene from Endgame. It's like, and now we've got whoop, and now we've got whoop, now we've got
Clancy Brown, the Kurgan himself, is the latest.
Who's the other one that they've mentioned? I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
There's Donnie Yen, Clancy Brown. There's so many people. Like it seems like every week there's a new person being added.
I just really hope they end it. I was hoping for a tight trilogy. I was happy. Well, money and they're making more films, but I just wonder. I just don't want it to get like Lost or Game of Thrones, where they are blatantly just making the story go on so they can make more money.
Well, but as in the words of the Kurgan, better to burn out than fade away.
It's August, and as you know, we are not really in cinemas that much, even though I haven't been to the cinema in 6 months. I went yesterday, and do you know what I went to see?
What did you see?
Paw Patrol.
Oh my goodness.
But we're not covering that on this podcast. No, I am going to go and see Free Guy, hopefully tomorrow or the next night. Looking forward to that. But what I have been doing in August is reading lots of books. Book Corner. Welcome to Book Corner.
I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
We don't really cover books, but a lot of books that we do read, George and I, relate to the films we cover. So what have you been reading? You've had some time off. What have you been reading that's wet your whistle?
I read one of the most recent Jack Reachers, Past Tense. And Lee Child is past caring. It's clearly like he's written two stories, one of them involving Jack Reacher going back to his father's birthplace. And another one is about this Canadian couple that get locked. It's like a horror movie. They get kidnapped or held hostage in a motel room, and then they're hunted by people with bows and arrows. It's a complete mess. I kept reading it to hoping it would get better. It didn't really.
Did you? So George and I are we've read all of the Reachers, like up until this summer. Like I haven't
most of them. Yeah.
George is referring to, but George wants it. You told me that doesn't he kind of write them like without any structure? He just
on the fly. He just starts.
Right. He just writes and he writes and he writes. I mean, I'm not.
Hasn't he handed it over? I think Lee Child's handed it over to his brother now because he's just like, I just can't be arsed. Just someone else do it.
Nobody can kill Reachers, so I can't be bothered finishing.
Apparently there's a Jack Reacher series coming out. I think Amazon have got it, and it's one of the guys that was in Titans. You know, that comic book one. He was the Hawk guy. Was it Hawk?
Really enjoyed the first season of Titans.
But he looks more like a Jack Reacher. Whether he can act like a Jack Reacher, who knows? But I also have started reading Born to be Bad Part 2, which is a fantastic book all about the villains of action heroes of the 80s and 90s. So obviously it's the part 2 of a series written by Tymon Singh.
Some of the best villains of many a Retro Ramble episode. Is that not right?
Yes, and hopefully we will be getting him on the show soon to talk about Born to be Bad 2. But it is I'm only about a quarter of the way through the second installment. But yeah, as Charlie says, the first one.
It's a must read for any Retro Ramble fans. I mean, from
Ronnie Cox,
from Sully in Commando to Bennett, to all of the terrorists in Die Hard who are still alive. Unfortunately, Alan Rickman's no longer with us. To Max von Sydow, to the bad guy from Lethal Weapon, from Beverly Hills Cop. Everyone. It's some real surprises, and even the bad guy from For Your Eyes Only. So yeah, I mean, they've got some. It's fascinating that he's got these interviews, and I can't wait to read the second one. For my part, I have been seriously getting into my Blake Crouch. So George introduced me to Blake Crouch a few years ago with one of his more recent titles, Dark Matter, which is, I guess you could argue, is quite sci-fi. It's all about, multi-dimensional crazy stuff. But I've gone back and read some of his originals, and I cannot recommend highly enough the Wayward Pines trilogy, which he said was inspired by watching like Lost and Twin Peaks.
Well, they have made it into a TV show, right?
I was just going to say, I've read all three, and I have just found out that there is a TV show with Matt Dillon. So I've bought that on Amazon, and I'm looking forward to watching that. But that is crazy nuts. I think he's a master of suspense, like thrillers. I forced George. You've got to read his Recursion book, which is all about time travel through memories. Which in one word, George, is just it's nuts.
It's bonkers. But yeah, Dark Matter, I think, is also being picked up for a series.
That should be a film, in my opinion. I think Recursion could be maybe it's the other way around. But Recursion should not everything should just be made to a series, because that's what people are consuming. Maybe mini-series, bro.
No, I think that's it. It should be a mini. But they are, good sci-fi, Christopher Nolan-esque, clever, thinky sci-fi.
Well, I'm currently reading this book, which is called Abandon, which is split between. So there's like this town in the mountains in America, like in Colorado, completely snow driven. Half the story is what happened in 1893, and half the story is what's happening today. And it's obviously about like Goonies, trying to find the gold, like how the town lost the gold, and like how it's mirrored. And so it's not sci-fi at all, but the guy is just an amazing talent. And just to go on from that, I've read the recent Andy Weir Project Hail Mary, which I would say is as good as The Martian, if not slightly better. It goes to places The Martian didn't go to, or where you might not expect him to go to, so I can't recommend that enough. And the two of them have teamed up on Blake Crouch has just released the Ford collection. So it's 6 books, and Blake Crouch does one, Andy Weir does one, and the other 4 books are written by 4 other up-and-coming sci-fi authors. So where we're going. So I know a lot of our Retro Ramble followers like their sci-fi, and if you like to read, you can get them for free on Kindle Unlimited. It's temporary. I think they're going to steal them back from us. But it's the summer, man. Cinemas, it closed at the moment. Have you been to the cinema recently, bro?
I have. I went and saw The Suicide Squad the other week in a packed out cinema. It made me feel a little bit anxious being in a pretty much a sold out screening and not one person wearing a mask.
You need a Struttable.
Struttable, definitely. But no, the Suicide Squad, it seems to be getting sort of very mixed reviews, but I thought it was brilliant. I mean, it's James Gunn who did the Guardians movies. He was,
it's going to be that level of quality. It's like funny.
Yeah, and if anyone's seen any of James Gunn's non-Marvel films, it's very much like that. So he has a very twisted, gory sense of humor. So it's got buckets of gore. It's probably the goriest film I've seen at the cinema in a long time. It's very funny. It's bonkers. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. A massive improvement on the original Suicide Squad movie, but that's a very low bar. So yeah, I'd really recommend that.
Suicide Squad and Suicide Squad. So just the Suicide Squad is the new one, yeah?
Yes, the Suicide Squad.
And the guy that none of us, I'd written off, I thought he was terrible in the Transformers film with...
he's talking about John Cena.
Yeah, John Cena, he has been terrible. And he's like, I'm just going to do what The Rock did. I'm just going to be a big actor. And let's just say, after having some time and hopefully some lessons, he is actually delivering. Like he's hot shit right now.
He's very good in it. He's he's very good.
Well done, John.
But all the cast, big Idris Elba, he's great in it. Margot Robbie is always, reliable as Harley Quinn. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I would recommend that.
I look forward to seeing that. And I also look forward to hopefully not having to drive a speedboat in my bath as I watch Dune. You must have heard this.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I think the rhetoric, the narrative needs to change. I think maybe just stop giving it to the streaming companies. This is the problem I have with this conversation. Like these directors and these movie makers, you can't watch it on stream. It's like, well, why are you putting it on streaming?
Yeah, well, no, it's out of their hands though. That's the thing with Dune. It was made.
No, contractually though, is it really? Like maybe it is now, but it'll be interesting if it's still happening in a year or two. Like Steven Spielberg has since backtracked after saying streaming would kill cinema. He's now making stuff for Netflix. And it'll be interesting to see how many other people just toe the line. It's like streaming's part of it. Cinema has to change, but you can't complain and say you've got to watch this at the cinema when you are making it available on streaming. I think it's weird.
But I think there's a lot going on, and I think the Hollywood lawyers are very busy at the moment. There's the whole Scarlett Johansson thing that she was given a deal that was based on a certain amount of a bonus based on box office, and then they released it simultaneously on Disney Plus and at the box office. So
where's that money?
A lot of people, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, she's just being greedy." Well, no, she is. She just wants what she's, negotiated, what's been promised to her. And
well, would you be happy with 2,000 if you were offered 5,000? Because that's what it's like. Yeah, 20 million or 50 million, but like, would you really be happy with 2,000 if you got 5,000 or 20 quid when it was 50 quid? It's the principle.
But yeah, getting back to Dune, just my final point on that, I will be seeing that on
cinema all the way,
biggest screen possible, the IMAX for sure.
Beam it into my eyeballs. I'm just hoist me on a harness 2 meters away from a 4K IMAX screen and just move me around
accordingly.
No, I can't wait. I'm very excited to see that film. I need to go back and rewatch the original because, like George was with Star Wars, I was a bit scared of Dune when it first came out when I was younger, and I don't think I needed to be.
I don't think the original is the best representation. I've read the book, which is a beast. It is quite a tough read. Whether you've got time to read it before then, who knows? It's
a lot of talk about books. This is definitely our August episode, which will be available in September, but definitely an August episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, should we tell people what's coming up next?
Well, I'd say we are.
Yeah, we talked about it. More books.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get Timon Singh to talk about his books, Born to be Bad. So that should be our next episode. But yes, we've got some other stuff coming up later in the year. Possibly Top Gun, if Top Gun Maverick, Top Gun 2 ever comes out. And maybe a Halloween episode. Film's 40th anniversary. So there's a clue there.
I'm both excited, aroused, and petrified. But just like any other school night. Okay, well, that's it for this time. I've been Charlie McGee.
I've been George McGee.
And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.